Hey traders, this is Cousin Vinny coming to you on Sunday, March the 4th at 2:30 p.m. with a look at the week ahead. This week I'd like to cover some things that I've been watching, namely sector rotation, the ADX that I've been mentioning in the room, as well as a few other things that have me positioned accordingly. We're looking at the spiders right now, and during the week, 2 weeks ago, I had mentioned that the ADX indicator had gotten overbought, these two signal lines right here, and I added this moving average in to give a sell signal, okay, which we were ahead of the game at any rate. And what I'm looking for now is a similar cross as we had here, okay, to occur here at some point. Now there was some speculation as to whether or not we would have sector rotation, which I'll get into in a minute. I think that's happening as well. So the ADX had given me the all clear to start taking profits on this very strong move up that we've seen since the October bottom here. Okay, and what I'm looking at now is some resistance at these highs. The Bollinger Band's starting to squeeze. A continuation of some consolidation, perhaps a move lower. And I also have in the back of my mind that thoughts of a 3 to 5% correction is all everyone's talking about right now. And that alone could give you some contrarian thoughts that the stock market could continue to go up. That said, let's look at some sector rotation. In addition, we saw MACD turn lower, okay, in the middle of February, and now we're starting to see stochastics getting into that area where it could turn down as well, because we have been overbought for the whole month of February. If you go over to stockcharts.com, you can check this particular link here. Okay. You can also look at the home page where you can look at the S&P sector performance chart, okay, and give you a good explanation as to sectors, how they rotate, when they rotate, and so forth, through total market cycle, moving from top to bottom and back to the top again. You got energy all the way through these. We're currently seeing some strength in finance, and then the cyclicals. We've seen technology, and we're looking at industrials and basic materials as well. So go ahead and check that article out. I'm not going to read all this to you, but basically what I'm looking at now is the sectors that have rotated in. This is the past week, okay. If we zoom out to the past month, connect the highs with these, you can see that consumer discretionary started to strengthen, okay. If we zoom out a little bit further to 3 months ago, in the past 6 months, you can see consumer discretionary and technology were doing well, okay. They rotated in. You want to see consumer discretionary rotate in. That's a sign that a bottom is in, and that we can expect the continuation of this move at some point after we correct, okay. We noticed here with this big red bar or brown bar that the financials have been doing well. They've come off a bottom. Year to date, you can see utilities, the orange bar. Obviously, if you had bought stocks in the utilities sector, you probably had some difficulties. We'll go over coal and a few others, although coal is, I guess, technically in the materials sector, but at any rate, utilities weren't doing that great, and the energy sector was doing okay. All right, so these bars give you that that view. You can also go to a line chart and disable some of these by clicking the boxes, okay. The S&P 500 until this goes gray, and this will give you the performance of the options that you've checked. performance against the S&P 500. Right, so you can see that compared to the S&P 500, the financial sector since December have done quite well. Okay, do I consider that or expect that to continue? That's left to be seen. But for the time being, I'm pretty much all cash now. I have the shorts on the comp and also on the SPYs. Okay, I'm not going to go through this whole description of the sector rotation. You can read that for yourself, but basically this is what it's been telling me. Now coming back to the spiders, this is basically what I am expecting. I'm going to extend this trend line out. You can see we've had these bottoms in October, again in November and December, and we haven't pulled back to that trend line to date. Okay, but I am fully expecting the stochastics to finally give us a sell signal and move lower, and come back down either to the 20 period or further down to the 50, which is this blue line here, dark blue, which is coincidentally right near these the trend line extension. Okay, so there is also some volume at price support, and depending on how you look at this, support down in this area, down at 128.57. I don't think we get down that low, but the 200 period is here, the red line. Okay. All of our momentum indicators, though, are giving us pause to reflect and possibly go to cash, which I have, and look for a sell signal on the ADX, which is what I completely expect to happen in the near future. Okay. With the comp, you can see the ADX here gave us a sell signal, or at least a reason to reflect and pause and to take some profits off. You can see that the signal lines are starting to head toward each other, and I'm expecting that we could see a move lower to at least the 50 period moving average, which is this dark blue line here. Okay, if we take a trend line from the October lows, we can see that we're very near that 50 period. Okay, we can also see the volume at price, which is very near the 50 period right here. Okay, this area here, a target for this volume at price for us to get a move lower. Okay, to anticipate a move lower. You can see the Russell already gave us a sell signal here. Okay, and we can see the result of that. Alright, we do have this volume at price that we're leading lower on. We have the 50 period right here, which acted as support back here in December. Okay, we can also see areas of support at the 200, the 300 right here, the white line. Okay, excuse me, the 100. We can see this previous high over here as support. Okay, the 50. So I'm expecting the Russell to come down perhaps to the 50 and then continue to move higher, but for the time being we have a sell signal on this cross right here. We can also see Bollinger Bands have squeezed and our sense starting to move in the other direction. Alright, top and bottom moving away from each other. You can see the support shelf on the volume at price that coincides with this 100 and 200 period moving average. So to keep an eye on that. Stochastics is approaching oversold and could turn. Looking at currencies, we can see the Euro-US dollar cross. When we broke out of this descending wedge in January, then we had quite a nice move above the 50 period and the 100 period. We hit the 200 period and tested that area and have since started moving lower. Okay, I'd watch these areas for support. Okay, these previous tops and the 50 period. which is this dark blue line here. Okay, stochastics could get going pretty strongly to the downside, so watch that. You can see the US dollar Japanese yen cross. I believe Gas traded this for most of this move here. Okay, you can check with him, but I think he was long for a couple of weeks, or excuse me, short the Japanese yen for some time. Obviously, this is the dollar against the yen, so a move higher means that the dollar was stronger against the yen, for those of you who don't trade currencies. So we can see this move is continuing higher, and that we had this little turn on last week. Okay, so I believe he took profits, which was a very, very nice trade. The point I'm getting at is you want to watch DVV, okay, which is the carry trade. Okay, Stephen Place turned me on to this a while back. You want to see this continue to move higher, which it is, okay, which would be bullish for stocks, right? So keep an eye on DVV. Also keep an eye on copper, and you can see we're trading right above, or we're trying to trade right above this volume at price. Okay, all your EMAs are moving higher. Okay, the 100 crossed the 200, so this is still looking bullish, but doesn't mean we can't deviate from that and revert back to mean. Okay, JJC's copper. You want to see this moving higher as well for equities. For now, we're moving sideways. If you look at FCX, the copper play, you can see that we're having troubles at these EMAs and the volume at price here. Okay. With regard to Freeport, this was a short. We talked about this in February, middle of February, and we continue to be underneath all these EMAs. We had a little hammer on Friday, but for the most part, this is still a good short. Okay, you should have covered some of your position on the loss of this 50 period EMA, but it's still looking a little bearish. Okay, looking at steel, same thing with US Steel. We're underneath these EMAs. I believe you guys were looking at this long. I'm not currently in this trade, but we're still down below the 50 period moving average. Doesn't mean we can't reverse. If we look at stochastics, probably see, well, ADX is all confused all in this area here, so it really doesn't give me much of a signal. But from a standpoint of a pattern, you have this trend line. Okay, if we have a pivot here somewhere, we're trying to base out in time being oversold on stochastics, so there's a possibility we can bounce off this 100 period. Now Johnny always looks at stocks that are showing relative strength or relative weakness, and you can see stocks like Lulu, they consolidated and are breaking higher. Okay, out of this high here. Okay, so from a pattern standpoint, we had a nice, if you look at this on a weekly, you can see we had a nice cup, a handle build, and then we're moving higher off of that. Okay, also look at Monster, the drinks. Saw this on one of Stephen Place's comments this weekend, moving higher. Chipotle, same thing, very strong stock. Whole Foods just got back from there. Place is always packed, and continues to move higher. Coors, we all know about Coors. We did quite well with that one. All right, continues to move higher. Stays between these EMAs and the upper Bollinger Band. It's still long, in my opinion. Qualcomm, doing quite well. Okay, looks like we're coming back to the 20 period, this blue line, the cyan line. Stochastics did move lower, but keep an eye on that one. Qualcomm. Nike, same thing, continuing to move higher. Now, stocks that weren't doing that well while the markets were moving higher, you notice that Amazon is a dead giveaway. Okay, so let me get rid of some of this junk on the screen. Now, if the market decides to move lower, these are one of the stocks that I would look at for a possible breakdown. All right. Possibly down to this area here, to 165, 160, wherever this would be in that time period, which would be about a week or two out. You already start to see stochastics starting to give you a turn back down. MACD below 0, and the red crossed over the green, the D plus and D minus. D minus is now in control, so you had a sell signal there. So I would be looking at Amazon short off of this upper trend line. Okay, Sienna, I believe I mentioned in the room on Friday or Thursday that I was short this stock. Okay, or looking at it. I'm not currently in the position, so I want to be very clear about that. Okay, but we're rotating between a buy and a sell signal, so this is a little convoluted. All right, but looking at this pattern, we can see that we had a trend line break, okay, depending on how far you zoom out. You look at this as a head and shoulders. Now, looking at the ES to finish this video, a 5% move lower, which a lot of people are talking about, would be about 1308. Okay, so 1308 is roughly right about there, where we had this move lower down to the 20 period, and we found support. So I'm also looking at this top. We have multiple areas where we could find support. Okay, so keep that in mind. So when we draw our fibs on here from the most recent lows here in December up to this high, 1377.25, that's close enough. You can see the 382 is right at 1307. Alright, so 5% move off of this last December pivot would bring us down to 1307. Alright, now if we take this pivot here, close to 786, almost 100% retracement. Okay, 50% would be right here at 1336, which would be along these lows here. Okay, 382 would be at 1346, which is close to these previous highs here, as I pointed out just a few minutes ago. Right here. Alright, so those are my targets. This is what I'm thinking. I do expect a pullback and some continued rotation of sectors. Okay, but eventually I think we're going to get a little bit of a move down, considering where we came from since the October lows. Okay, so that's what I think. I'm just watching the charts, trying not to think too much. And let's take one last look at this. Let's look at, I think I've looked at this before, but taking this low in October up to this high, and the 382 is way back here at this gap area in December, which I don't see us coming back to. We do have some areas of support over here, okay, which would coincide with that 382 or 50% we were looking at the 1338, 1340. Okay, so we came down here. The 50 period, if we enable that, I suppose there's an easier way to do this. You can see where the 50% or the 50 period is. If we came back down, the 50 is coming back up. Projected it'll probably be up here in the near future, and we'll come back down to this area. 1340 seems like a very likely area for a move back. It's also where we had this high before, which could be support. Alright, Okay, this is Cousin Vinny coming to you on Sunday the 4th. Remember to use your stops. Hope this helped, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.